Damn, I'm missing something. I know I am. But what am I missing? I've done everything correctly. What am I missing? Let's see. The amount of water is right. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, it's all right. Yes, it's all correct, and the most important part is a piece of her DNA, so yes, I have it all right. But then why does she act so robotic? So soulless? It had been 4 years to the day that Jessica had died. The love of my life, the woman whose affection I sought for. I had always tried to win it, but alas, she would never return those feelings to me. I would have done anything for her. Hell, I would have given up on my experiments. One other thing I also love. Oh, just thinking of her makes me blush. I remember the day I learned of her death. A car accident near the outskirts of town. She and another were driving to someplace only for a drunk truck driver to slam right into them. The car, a luxury vehicle, became a luxury sardine can. There was no way to save them from that horrible sight. The woman I love, whose beauty knew no bounds, was mashed in a putty. Yet I didn't weep. Well, I did for the mere minutes I learned of her death, but I gathered myself, not wishing to waste my life living in a world without her. I knew what I had to do, what I had to accomplish. It would be considered a sin against the natural order. But I didn't care, for with my mind in my very own hands, I would grant my love life again. I performed grueling studies for days and nights over all the scientific knowledge on the concept of cloning. Though it had never been done before with a human life, there had been many attempts only for those of religious mindsets to stop it. Oh, the fools. I wouldn't let something so trivial stop me from reuniting with my love. Yet I'll admit, the gathering of the materials needed for such a task was the hardest. Sure, some of them I could pick up in local places, but for the harder stuff, I had to either steal it or do some backhanded dealings. I nearly lost my own life at one point when I met up with some delinquents who promised me an entire case of chemicals, only for them to try and rob me. Luckily, I managed to escape their attempt. After months and months of working, I had finally arrived at that moment. Almost in the same fashion of Frankenstein, I brought my creation to life. Though normally cloning would require the subject to go through the same cycle as all normal life, create the embryo, then implant it into a surrogate mother, I couldn't wait that long to be reunited with my love. Thankfully, with some connections, I secured an experimental machine from an associate who happened to work for the Tiseo Corporation. No, surely. At first, he didn't want to comply, but after pulling some dark memories, he quickly showed me the machine. There I was, standing in front of it with a crying heart. I couldn't believe how well made it was. But alas, I couldn't truly admire its worth, for my associate hasted me to work. With him showing me how the machine was designed, I graciously accepted his help in fulfilling my task. We sped fast with our hands and minds, working on getting my months and months of desires into a reality. With everything needed inside the machine and our body down to the point of exhaustion, I flipped the switch just in the fashion of Frankenstein. The lights of the machine flashed maniacally in unison with the whirling and buzzing of the instruments themselves. Then, in the brilliance of their startup, the machine fell silent. My associate and I stared at one another before cautiously approaching the large steel door. Turning the thick valve handle, I managed to pull away the door much like I would the wrapping paper on my Christmas presents. Full, thick steam gushed out from the inside, causing my associate to back away. But I myself walked through, not fearing the hotness that came with it. In the final moments of the steam, I saw it. My desire. She laid there in the machine, just as if she had taken a nap. I removed my coat to cover her with it. Picking her up in my arms, I stepped out of the machine, and my associate's jaw dropped at the miracle the machine had just performed. Yet before he and I could even speak upon the worth of the machine, there were knocks in an aggressive manner that came upon the door. My associate hurried out of the room through a secret entrance that had been built just in case of emergencies. That was the last time I saw him. In the days after that moment of creation, I had brought my love to my residence. Here I brought her clothes and jewels I knew she had loved in life. I even managed to somehow prepare her favorite dish, spicy plum salmon, without burning it, which says something for myself, a person who doesn't even cook his own meals, only ever eating cup noodles. But nonetheless, there seems to be something about my love that seemed childlike. With all these things, she would stare or touch them like a newborn. It was this that made me start to study her even more, and notice that when I did something, she would do the same. Had she been developed with a childlike brain? I mean, certainly I wouldn't have the ability to give her the memory of a brain of her former self, but nonetheless certain she had some form of sense. It was during these moments I began to wonder if I had made the right choice. Surely I loved her with all my heart, and would do anything to be with her. But why was there that itching feeling inside my brain? I studied over my papers just to double check I did everything right. Like I mentioned earlier that day, it was the last time I had spoke with my associate. I fear the company he worked for might have done something horrible to him. I wonder if he told them about me and her. I pushed this thought to the back of my mind. It wasn't the important thought to have right now. I had to discover why my love wasn't herself. I had to know what I did wrong, if anything at all. I left her as I went out. I wasn't too worried, for like most children, she was occupied by the worlds brought to her eyes by the television. I spent the entire day going through the books at the library of the city university. My fingers flipped through every page. My eyes scanned every word. But my brain grew with tiredness and impatience. With a deep, heavy sigh, I left the library, coming to stop for a quick smoke under a large oak tree that stood out front. Within the seconds it took for the ash from my cigarette to fall upon my shoes, I heard a strange-sounding whistle. In those moments, my smoke drifted to the first branch of the tree, and I peered to my left to see a strange, tall man dressed in an old suit adorned with a top hat. He strolled towards me with a cane in hand, coming to stop a few mere inches from me. I blew out some smoke to my right, not wanting to get it into the man's face. I waited for him to speak, thinking he may want to give me something, or offer me to join some religious experience. However, he never spoke. The only thing he did was flash a wide smile. I looked once more at the man, trying to get a better look at his face, but thanks to the way his top hat sat, I couldn't see the rest of it, just his smile. Not wanting to stand in this strange silence with the man, I smiled, and spoke first, asking what he wanted. His smile grew wider, and I watched as he untwirled his colorful scarf around his neck, revealing it to be his very long hair. It was a shock to see a man with such long hair. Not even my love had hair that long. However, before I could be any more shocked, I heard the man speak. "Well, oh well, good dear sir, are thou in need?" His speech was just as weird as his appearance. I raised an eyebrow and dabbed away some ash from my cigarette. "In need?" I asked. "I guess you could say that, but I don't need any religious mumbo-jumbo." The man cocked his head. "Oh, dear sir, what I offer is no mumbo-jumbo." The man returned his head back to a straight position. "No, oh no, for what I offer is something neat. For surely it would be what you need to complete." I took a deep inhalation of nicotine. With a deep exhale, I spoke. "Need to complete? What does that mean?" "Oh, I see, I see. I'm sure you know what I mean. For surely to finish thy love, it's what you need." "Love?" I tossed my nicotine stick to the ground, mashing it with my foot. "What do you know about my love? Did my associate send you?" The man smiled slightly. "No one sent me on this chance, for I felt thy need upon the whisper. I know what thy seek, and I can offer it, for what needs to be complete." Who was this strange man, and more importantly, how did he know what I needed? No, wait, that can't be the case. He had to be one of those people reading faces and tricking them into using what he's learned. That had to be it. My facial expression had to give it away. Surely this was just a trick. I shook my head. "Sorry, I don't need your help, sir." The man's smile vanished. He held up his cane, showing off a small glass orb that rested onto it. "I'm sure that I know I speak the truth. Look inside and see what I see." I stared at the strange man, not wishing to play into his games. Then I saw something within the orb. It was her. It was my love. Somehow this man held something like a video of my love in my house within his glass orb. How? Did he have a camera in my home? No, that's insane. I would have known if he had anything in my house. After all, this is the first time I've left home in days. How? My voice trembled. How are you doing this? The man's wide smile returned. I know what I did, for it interested me in many ways. Yet I saw that I didn't get the one ingredient needed for it to be complete. Ingredient? I asked. So I did miss something. Tell me. I reached out toward the man, grabbing him by his shoulder. My teeth gritted against each other. Tell me, what did I miss? What did I miss? The man's smile left again as he turned away from my hand. I jumped back, letting go of his shoulder. I watched as he dusted off the spot where my hand once grasped. He lowered his cane, letting the vision of my love disappear. Then I watched as his left hand reached into his breast pocket, pulling out a solid black card. In a stunned silence, he held it out to me. Use this. I accepted the card, moving it around to see neon colors flashing upon it. What do I do with this? I asked. The man held his cane under his left arm as he gathered his hair, wrapping it back around his neck like a scarf. Place it upon thy love's chest, and watch as her soul returns. Her soul? Are you saying that's what I'm missing? I glanced up from the card only to stand there with a jaw-dropping expression. The man vanished much like he appeared. I heard that strange whistle on the wind. I stared back at the card and its strange neon colors. I returned home to my love, greeting me at the front door like a child waiting for Santa. I caressed her cheek as I stared into her eyes. It was then that I noticed how truly blank they looked. Was that man correct in saying I hadn't completed her because of her soul? Yeah, how can you return a soul? A soul is just a word tossed around by those who fear the natural order of death. Once you die, you die. There wasn't anything that comes after her physical self vanished. Then why in those blank eyes did I believe that man's words? I took my love by the hand, taking her to the living room. I sat her on the couch all the while she watched me with a curious expression. I removed the strange card from my back pocket. I held it up once more, staring at its neon colors that flowed within its blackness like blood in someone's veins. I guess nothing ventured, nothing gained. I placed the card on my love's chest, and in moments I was engulfed by vibrant colors from the card. I fell down on my back watching the colors wrap my love. In seconds, they faded, and I stood up looking at her, who had remained seated, but now whose head had tilted downward. I called out her name with no response. I stepped forward with a reaching hand. Who? Why? Her voice escaped her lips. For the first time ever, she had spoken. Jessica. I grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. Jessica? Jessica, I said as I stuttered on my own words. As I shook her, I noticed droplets of blood followed by pieces of her flesh that had fallen on my carpet. Then she raised her head up, and I saw the most grotesque form I could ever imagine. Why? She screamed as her body slowly took on the appearance that she had had in her final moments. I jumped back in horror at the sight of her becoming a living corpse. She rose up from the couch, walking towards me, the sounds of her bones cracking into the positions they were in as she was found after the crash. Her flesh dripping off her body. I watched as her left leg bent to the side, causing her kneecaps to explode. I covered my mouth, pulling myself up to run from the dreaded thing that was once my love. I ran to my study, vomiting a little as I searched through my desk. I heard a disgusting body snap and pop down the hall. After frantic searching, I found it, though. I'm not very good at using it, but I had purchased it for self-defense in case of any break-ins. I held up the pistol and fired right as she stepped into the doorway. She never felt it as she continued to walk inside. The bullets did nothing but pass through her rotting flesh. Why? Why did you bring me back? I was in peace and now I'm here to experience it all over. The pain of living. She cried. Stop talking, I shouted. Not wanting to continue to use the gun, I tossed it at her. It hit her head, causing her to fall to the ground. I rushed towards the fireplace in my study, grabbing the fire poker. She reached a hand out at me only for a finger to fall from it. Not wanting to see her in such a form, I began to repeatedly bash her into the mush. Her cries mixed with the disgusting wet sound of her flesh would forever be etched into my mind. I scrambled backwards to the wall, my back sliding all the way down until I hit the floor. My hands shaking, I reached into my pocket pulling out a cigarette. The poker I had used stayed stuck in her skull like a morbid sword in the stone. After lighting the fire to my cigarette, I took in a deep inhale, letting it work its magic to my nerves. The smoke trickled up to the ceiling, swirling like a man-made storm. I lost my love to a freak accident. Now I had lost her to my own hands. I sat there in the swirling smoke of nicotine in a daze. Was this my fault in doing something that no human should ever attempt to do? No, this shouldn't be my punishment. We all have the right to creation, even if it seems sinful. For like the quote in the Bible stated, God created us in His image. Then by definition, all of us, have the right to create, even a human. But why did it have to end like this? My eyes drifted down towards the murky pile of my love. Within her chest, I saw colors glow. At first, I held concern, then, after a second, I remember it was the card that the strange man had given me. That man with his strange walk and creepy whistle returned to me. I know why this happened. It was him, that man. Who was he? Why did he offer his help in the first place? Did he know this would happen? Is that why he approached me? He must have gotten some strange satisfaction out of it. I rose up walking to the pile, pulling out the card. The messy juices of flesh, blood, and bile did nothing to damage it. My eyes became entranced by the strange neon colors. It had to be because of this. This is what caused my love to change into that horrid abomination from my nightmares. That missing ingredient. That's what he said this card would help me with. I see now. I tossed the still burning cigarette onto the pile of my love. I watched it burn with ease and inhaled the smoke that came off the mess. So that missing ingredient? I guess the next time I resurrect her, I won't need it. Of course, it isn't that crucial. She was living fine without it. I mean, if I'm being at all honest, who needs a soul anyway?